Hello, everyone. I'm here with a longtime friend of the channel, Fritz Imperial. Fritz Imperial was a YouTuber, or is a YouTuber, I should say. He started his channel right along with mine in 2016 at the height of sort of anti-SJW YouTube. And we've had periodic live streams every year where we shoot the shit about a variety of topics, usually pop culture, usually culture war stuff, some politics. But the conversation usually goes in interesting directions, although I should probably put an entropy stream in because oftentimes people have questions and it takes us in interesting directions. Fritz, welcome to the show. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Fritz Imperial. You may know me as the guy that used to have a good YouTube channel in the sphere that I'm still trying to get back on track. Hopefully I'm coming out with a video on aristocracy or the need for a new aristocracy soon. Also wanting to get more into regular streaming. Like there's a bunch of horror games I'd like to stream for you guys during the spooky season. Like go ahead.
No, go ahead. Which games?
There's a little kind of graphic adventure game called Children of Silent Town. Where your little girl just kind of, and there's something spooky in the woods. I streamed it once, but haven't done it in a while. There's also Little Nightmares, which is like a little puzzle platformer game wherein, if you're kind of familiar with Coraline, it's similar to that, but like the nightmare world is everything is like kind of grotesquely bigger, and it has a really good atmosphere in it. So
yeah, horror games were a staple of the genre. I remember Silent Hill back in the day, and I guess you could even include the Bioshock varieties in there, right? I mean, then there was this whole like kind of liminal horror thing with the Slender Man thing. And then I got into playing video games, so I have no idea what's going on right now.
There's some good stuff coming out. Again, like the Little Nightmares games, I think are quite charming because they have a very good art style. But like, a big one that I think is you said Silent Hill, and I just love like people's nostalgia for that game, even though I haven't played it. Is like people think of that as just high art because it's supposed to be like this epic psychological horror, but I think a pinnacle of horror games that I think of is Bloodborne, which is the same people that made Dark Souls.
Because that's the Lovecraft one.
That's the one where you're like this hunter in this like Victorian era city that's like plagued by beasts, and you think it's going to be a kind of gothic, like you're like Van Helsing, but then it kind of brilliantly kind of unfolds into a cosmic horror where there's like ancient gods and stuff like that. And as somebody who just got the a bunch of books for the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, I'm quite a fan. Like that's something. Go ahead.
I have friends in high school who were really into Call of Cthulhu role-playing, but I just never really got into role-playing because it was too, I don't know. I don't want to downplay. I don't want to like bash role players, but it was a very theater kid type scene. And my Call of Cthulhu friends were all kind of real goths, like, Vampire the Masquerade, Call of Cthulhu, same scene. Now I was remember just hanging out forever at like this dingy coffee shop with a bunch of hippies, like
it feels
wearing fake vampire stuff and playing. It was an interesting scene, right? But for me, games, I want games to have. I want video games. When I played video games, I always like the games where you commanded an army and less ones where you played a character. That is just my particular thing.
I guess you would like the Total War games then, but...
Oh, yeah, I was a huge fan of the Total War games. I remember playing the original Shogun Total War. I was blown away by it. It's such a primitive game by today's standards.
It is.
Totally unbalanced, but it was amazing at the time.
I loved, the original Rome Total War, where you just had a line of hoplites, and they would literally mow down enemies charging at you on a bridge like a machine gun. But it's still impressive. Of course, like Warhammer has kind of taken that over, or that scene over, where like I have a friend of mine that's a lot more into the Total War games, and he's just like, man, it's gone way down ever since like Napoleon Total War almost 10 years ago. But
well, yeah, I mean, that's actually interesting. So wait, Warhammer took over because originally Warhammer was the thing that took over from the tabletop historical games. That was tabletop games were dominated by historical games until Games Workshop came around. Then nowadays you have a hard time finding a single person there's like one company that does
Avalon Hill.
I can't remember, but there's one or two companies. I think
Mhm.
Imperium is another one that does it. I don't know, that do like historical ranch
Because
war
yeah,
game.
in college, I was actually able to take a whole course on historical wargaming. So and that was actually really fun. It was like every week we'd play like a new like historical war game. Still have a few of
Invented by H.G. Wells.
them.
H.G. Wells invented historic war game. Well, I mean, the story goes. I'm sure someone's going to chime in and say that this is just all apocryphal bullshit invented by newspapers. But the story goes is that H.G. Wells and somebody who was, I don't know, I think he was a paraplegic from World War One. He designed this game as sort of an advanced way of still participating in life with somebody who couldn't anymore. And they developed this whole rule set for historical war game simulation, and that's what all this is based on.
There's a good quote I like from Star Trek: The Next Generation from Q, and it's during a pretty bad episode from like season 1, but it's like, can't we? It's something like, you can tell so much about humanity by the games we play.
Yeah, I've had this live stream idea of doing a live stream on metagaming. The evolution of metagaming is really, really interesting. So, I mean, that's something that I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, you mentioned Warhammer, yeah, because like I think back in 2015, not 40K, but Fantasy Warhammer they released Warhammer Total War, and then like kind of two and 3 are just kind of big expansions onto that, which it is kind of fun because like it can take you away from the kind of ridiculous ahistoricity of the historical Total War games. If I want, even though the Paradox grand strategy games aren't much better, but yeah, they've kind of taken over, and it's I'm curious because like I think another one of the latest releases is like Three Kingdoms Total War, but I haven't really played those lately.
You mean is that the Romance of the Three Kingdoms?
Yeah. They made a Total War based on that.
Okay, I mean that's in China they've been releasing Romance of the Three Kingdoms. For those in the audience, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is, I want to say it's a historical romance and not a history, but it is a series of stories about a sort of struggle for dynastic power in the Han Dynasty, I believe. And this is just spawns infinite numbers of I don't really even know what to compare it to in the West, but this spawns like infinite number of movies and infinite number of video games that go on and on. So yeah, they've had that for the longest time. Yeah. But I mean, you wanted to talk about specifically Halloween themed media. People have been talking a little bit about potentially a decline of Halloween and how millennials don't have kids. So the whole scene of people going trick-or-treating is less and less. Like there's fewer and fewer neighborhoods that have huge Halloween bashes because so few people have kids.
That and COVID kind of destroyed the idea of like those parties everyone can go to. Like nobody's gonna do that. I mean, the COVID hysteria is still going on.
Have you heard of Trunk or Treat?
What's that one?
Oh, Trunk or Treat's like where you take your kid to a parking lot with a bunch of other parents and they have trick or treats out of the trunk as opposed to going door to door because it's quote unquote safer.
Yeah, Halloween's an interesting holiday because of the fact that obviously it has its roots of like of All Saints Day and just kind of, a mix of Christian and some pagan to a certain degree or another in the past. But it's like it's a holiday. At one time, it's a very innocent holiday but at the same time, problem is that like there's no stakes to it because it isn't. Almost nobody celebrates it as a religious holiday, and that's why it's like everybody kind of likes it and millennials like it because again, it's a chance to cosplay and it's a chance because I don't think millennials even care if they don't have kids. Like they'll just watch horror movies alone, I guess. But
well, I mean the slutty Halloween party is a staple of the millennial woman, right? Like that's slutty X costume. I mean, that's the stereotype. Like the millennial female costume kid is like take random Halloween costume, put slutty in front of it, and then it becomes like the edgy millennial female millennial costume. There's like still parties like that, I imagine, right? I don't know. Are the millennials all old now? They say that COVID was before COVID, the millennials were young, and after COVID, the millennials are now old.
They've all aged 20 years since
So
that.
this is the cutoff point, right? If you're a millennial, you can no longer call yourself young after COVID.
Even though I'm still in my 20s, but
well, there you go. I mean, is that, do people still throw those kind of parties? I mean, that was like a staple of my.
But
okay, well, yeah, sure.
What's the slutty reactionary streamer costume?
Well, there's plenty of that on.
No,
on
the Pac-Man Respecter made that. In the chat,
I don't know. I remember one girl had this like. I'm gonna go as Abraham Lincoln, and then Slade's like, "Well, I'm Babraham Lincoln." I'm like, "Oh my god, really?" I think I was like 24 years old or 22.
Didn't one year you went as Martin Luther and Helen went as like?
That was when we were first dating. Well, yeah, but that was when we first were dating. This is before we even we had met just a few. But she happened to want to go as the devil, and I happened to have. I didn't really have a Martin Luther costume around. I just had robes. And then I found a little cap that looked like Martin Luther. I'm like, oh, I'll do that. And then I met her, and I was, oh, we'll do Helen and Martin Luther, right? The perfect Halloween costume. But it was not intended as a couple costume. I think we've only done one couple costume, and that was Anthony and Cleopatra. You know, but I know it's when you're parents, it's different, right? It's you're just taking the kid around and picking up treats. But these days, I
don't have kids yet, but I have a twin niece and nephew, and I'm sure like my brother and sister-in-law are getting excited to stroll them around for Halloween because they're adorable. But
no, but I mean, like people are saying Halloween is kind of over. I don't know. I mean, the problem is that obviously the scary movie market has diminished. I think that we're at kind of a low point in the ghost story.
Oh yeah, and also there is the problem of desensitization. Like the day of if you watched the original Halloween from 1978, it's incredibly tame, just because it's like almost nothing happens in the whole movie. Like the kills from Michael Myers are so short. Like that time, as opposed to I don't know, like modern horror movies, like everything has to be super loud and like explode everywhere, and like.
It's like the jump scare, right? The constant jump scares.
But what the funny thing is about like those old horror movies is there's a bit of there's definitely like a conservative aspect to it, because the fact that like the slutty girls and like the promiscuous kids that are off having sex.
You're talking about the slasher movies, right?
Yeah. Like they're the ones that'll get killed off, but then like the kind of homely virgin girl is always the one that survives.
Yes, the homely virgin girl, like who's like a perfect 10. She just has like blonde hair. She just has brown hair and glasses. Right? That's the ugly girl, right?
That was the 80s idea of like, how do we make this person ugly? Glasses.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, even all horror movies are implicitly Catholic to a certain degree. I mean, the classic one obviously is Exorcist, which if you rewatch it, it is certainly a flawed film in the sense that I don't think like the payoff with exorcism itself is incredibly anticlimactic, but it is like the way they shoot that movie leading up to the actual exorcism is just brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and especially the first scene that takes place in Mosul of all places in Iraq, and I think it's things like that.
That and speaking of which, there's actually a game that came out recently, or it was a trilogy. It was like a short trilogy called Faith: The Unholy Trinity, which is actually made by a Christian, and the graphics are like purposefully look like old Atari, like even prior to like 8-bit, and yet it's still horrifying. And it's just a story of a priest going around trying to fight a satanic cult because he feels bad that he like almost killed a girl he was supposed to perform an exorcism on, and like the actual and like it, like the opening theme music to it is like "Abide with Me," but in like 8-bit, and like there's like in an interview with him where he is actually like a Sunday school teacher in real life.
I had to ask the chat: are people hearing Fritz? Because I'm hearing you.
Oh, is this better?
I think it might be your connection, not your microphone. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's check with the chat here. But I think it's all right. Okay.
Yeah, they say
Um,
they can hear me.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it's. I think I missed the last thing you said, but I'll say this: there was a genre of horror movies that I. What was it? The Ari Aster. He did Hereditary, and I think Midsummer too, and it's a horror movie. I thought those were really good. And then before that, there was a movie that was not directed by that director, but I felt had a very similar style called The Witch, which was a perfect slow cook horror movie.
I haven't seen it yet because I've seen The Northman and I saw The Lighthouse, and I thought I think I have I echo your sentiments on The Northman, but I think the Lighthouse was really, really good. So I think I'd like to see Robert Eggers, that's the director.
I didn't quite understand what was trying to be said in The Lighthouse. I thought it was shot well, but I felt like it had the typical thing where there are too many threads going on inside of it, and I felt like they should really have focused on one or the other. And because when it's a horror movie, I kind of want the tension to be very, very simple. And I felt there were too many loose threads going on with the past and the two main characters, and it needed to kind of focus on one or two central mysteries as opposed to like 5 of them, I thought.
Yeah, it's been a while since I saw it. I think it was just more horror of isolation. But there's also the fact that I remember when I saw like a poster advertising it when I was at the movie theater, there was like this I was like, I thought I could envision what the movie was going to be, and it was going to be like some Oscar bait, just like the acting chops of Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, which are there. They're definitely really good actors. But I remember like when I saw it in the theater, there was like an old woman at the end of the movie, not in the movie, but like in the audience. Like after I heard she said like that was just ridiculous, and like she thought this was going to be a completely different movie than what it ended up being. But
I remember seeing movies in the theaters.
No, it's still fun. Like I mean, the last one I saw, last time I was in the movie theater, I saw the Mario movie, but then I saw like this nice, tasteful anime film afterwards. That was a total palate cleanser. It was Suzume by Makoto Shinkai, who makes very similar films where they're like incredibly well shot, very influenced by Studio Ghibli, but they're usually like just a couple that kind of falls in love under like supernatural circumstances.
I haven't seen anime in ages. I mean, have you seen Hereditary or any of those movies?
No, I need to see Hereditary and I need to see The Witch. I know they're probably really good.
I don't know. I mean, they're kind of what I oftentimes call tableau horror, where the jump scare is like, oh, really, really fast. Maybe you see it, maybe you didn't. But the tableau horror, they just kind of hang on these images that would make sort of supremely horrific paintings and just slow cook the tension that way. And it's quite hard to look at sometimes. I don't know. Some people say that they're sort of egregiously evil in a sense, like they just kind of focus these scenes of intense evil and kind of try to make you sick that way. And I guess they succeeded doing that, but I don't know. I mean, it's where we're seeing people have controversies over like what was Midsummer a good movie. I think the idea of a definitively good movie is kind of, when was the last movie that came out that everyone thought was really, really good? You said Mario, right? Like I mean,
it wasn't a good. It was not a good movie, but
it's not a good movie. But my son really liked it because he's really into Mario.
Yeah, it was a general non-offensive crowd pleaser.
Yeah, but it was genuinely a really bad movie. There's no redeeming quality to Mario. And the question is, when has there been any movie that's come out recently that's been at all that hasn't been somewhat controversial, and that people to say it's okay? I guess the Barbie movie was the last movie we experienced collectively as a culture. What was that before that? Like, what was the last collective cultural moment we experienced? Joker, Game of Thrones. Yeah, that people say that. Maybe Tiger King. Everything else has just been kind of inside various interest groups.
The last movie that was just like universally loved by critics and everybody was like Lord of the Rings, wasn't it? It's like the last massive blockbuster that didn't just kind of get buried. I mean, okay, Marvel movies.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, for a bunch of the early Marvel movies, everyone agreed were good. Like the original Iron Man, everyone thought was really good. If we're talking about blockbusters, that's certainly the case. But back then, like up until 2012, there were periodically Oscar movies that everyone thought were good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I looked at the Oscar winners 2000 to 2012, I bet I could find like movies that were just generally considered really good movies. You know,
and weren't just kind of artistic Oscar bait.
Complete this.
Hello?
16, 17. Are you having a hard time hearing me?
No, you just cut out for 1 second.
Okay. No, the dissolution of cultural consensus didn't occur until what is it? I should say it didn't occur until 2016 around about.
I mean, I think the problem is that, the old boomer directors who had all those creative ideas, like all that stuff, the fumes are starting to run out. It's evidenced by like Disney cannot make any. The magic of Disney is gone.
Did they all get Me Too'd?
That and just like they have nothing. They nobody likes the new movies that come out. Nobody sees them. But they can only make the terrible live action remakes and just.
The Coen brothers still make movies, don't they? Don't they have movies coming out?
What was the last movie? I mean, I saw the
Ballad of Buster Scruggs would be the last movie that I remember seeing of the Coen brothers, and that was certainly a collective. I mean, that was something that I watched with my parents, and was right when my son was born, I think. And that was I mean, I wouldn't say it's a fun time, but it's certainly, actually, that's an interesting movie. That was a movie that I saw, and I originally thought, oh man, this is just sort of depressing kind of tales from the Old West. But then I took another look at it, and I kind of saw it in a different light. Now I think it's probably among their best. Did you get a chance to see that one?
No, I'm not a huge movie person. Like the last Coen brothers, the only Coen brothers movies I saw was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I just looked at the what movie won this year, and it's Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh my god, like that's stupid.
That won. That movie actually won.
Any movie that has to do with the multiverse there needs to be a ban on media talking about the multiverse, because it's so lazy and it makes everything pointless, right? Wasn't that a thing on like Rick and Morty, right? Is like everything gets destroyed in their own universe, so they just say, none of it matters, we're just going to go to a new one.
Well, that's not this is something. Zero HP. Do you know Zero HP Lovecraft?
Yeah,
or do you read him? Okay,
I don't read him, but I know who he is.
Okay, I mean, he had this amazing review of Spider-Man Beyond the Multiverse, and he said that every single multiverse story always centers around the same conflict, where a protagonist has to fight infinite evil versions of himself for the sake of every single possible universe that could ever exist. And Zero H.P. Lovecraft said this is the perfect personification of the toddler mind. The entire world is completely contained in an internal fight I'm having with myself. And if I lose it, then all possible universes everywhere, anytime, will be obliterated.
And I'm sure as the father of a toddler, you understand that.
Yeah, I mean,
the world tends to revolve around themselves.
Toddlers have poor theories of mind for other people.
Yes,
and that's kind of where we are as a culture. And I don't know,
but
yeah, I'm looking at the selections here, and I mean, I would say that the last one that really, I'd say maybe the Hurt Locker was one that I think Hurt Locker and No Country for Old Men were the only two I could think of where everyone in America kind of universally acknowledged that these were the movies that needed to win. Then they progressively become more political. So
now the bigger question is, like, what about movies? Like, what movies have won recently, or what movies are like that but aren't based on a book? No Country for Old Men is, based on
Hurt Locker isn't based on. Is that based on the book? Well, I mean, sure. I don't know. Who knows, right?
But no, I did read.
I mean, go ahead.
Speaking of No Country for Old Men, I haven't seen it yet, but I have. Who is the author of the book again?
Cormac McCarthy.
Cormac McCarthy. Yeah, I did read Blood Meridian a few months ago, and that movie was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's that's an amazing
It
book.
was one that like I didn't really get it right after I finished it, but then after like a few days, it started sinking in. Just like okay, this is like we're gonna take this realistically as possible and make it
Mhm.
gritty. Yeah, it's like it made me appreciate it more as opposed to just going, wow, I hate every single one of these characters. The point is
Well,
though that's
yeah,
kind of the point.
yeah. I mean, it's in a tradition of Southern Gothic,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think I've ever read No Country for Old Men the book. I'm told it's more or less like the actual movie, but the movies is so definitively Coen Brothers in so many of its designs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the Cormac McCarthy is a very suitable author for. I mean, he died. What I think he died last year, or maybe it was even this year. But he was the great author of our time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I have to see No Country for Old Men. Like, there's so many movies on my
Oh, you
list.
haven't seen it?
No, I'm so sorry.
Okay. I mean, what was the last Coen Brothers movie you saw? Did you see True Grit?
I saw. I have not seen any. No, I did see the True Grit one. That was It was like 15 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I have not seen. I've seen that, and I've seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That's it.
Okay. Well, I mean, Coen Brothers, they're the last. I always people always say that they're the last. They're the last people who truly understand the loss for who he was, and they're Jewish, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there you go. Their movies are just they're the last thing that feels like it comes from old America in a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, on my list, but it's a transition, I guess, from if we want to from movies to food. Like a good segue to that is The Menu, which is a movie I saw. It came out last year, and it was really, really good. And it kind
Is
of
that with Anya Taylor-Joy?
it's with her, Ray Fiennes, and Nicholas Hoult, where
the wide-eyed girl.
yeah, I mean, I guess people make fun of me because I think she's attractive, but
Oh, she's very attractive, but
yes,
her eyes are so far apart. It's
mm-hmm.
kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. But of course, you're fine to make fun of her for that. But if you make fun of the woman that was playing Ariel in the new Mermaid, you're racist for saying that, even though her eyes are even further apart.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's ever going to see that movie.
No, I didn't even remember that it came. It came out and then it came and went. Nobody knows what it. It's like the weird thing with the Avatar movies, right? Where they make so much money, everyone sees them, no one talks about them or remembers anything that happened.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? You mean the Avatar is in not the Airbender, but
not the good one, the bad, the stupid
Smurf,
blue people
the
movie.
Dances with Smurfs ones.
Yes,
I mean when Avatar: The Last Airbender came out when Avatar, just James Cameron's Avatar came out in 2000 and was it 9? That it was a big
2009.
Deal. It was a big deal. It felt like it was a movie that was. It felt like it was a big deal for sure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, to transition though, it's like The Menu, because I saw also right before your stream on like the food culture and just the characters in the movie reminded me exactly of kind of the high end urbanites, like of their approach to food, because the premise of it is that like she is like an escort that's with Nicholas Hoult, who's a foodie like blogger or something, and like they go to this like private island where this master chef, who it's parodying or it's a satire on like Gordon Ramsay, those types of celebrity chef played by Ray Fiennes, and it's just like everything is just like absolutely perfect, and like the point of the experience of the food becomes more important than the food itself, and it's just like you have all these like insufferable left wing elites eating at the restaurant, like you have like this food critic and her like simp boyfriend who's just like says yes to everything, and like this old like boomer couple that just hate each other and stuff like that, and like they just turn out to be such sheep because they don't even understand what food is. Because like the second course for the bread course, he like Ray Fiennes gives like this whole spiel about how bread is like the staple of all cultures. Jesus said we should ask for our daily bread, and that's why you're not getting any, because you're high class, right? You don't want to eat like the peasants, so you don't get any bread for your bread course. You just get some like dipping sauces. and it's just kind of making fun of this.
Wait,
this
so
type
that so they weren't. I imagine that the secret of the menu is that they're eating people or something like that.
No,
Or...
it's not that actually. That's what
Okay,
everybody
what
thought
is...
it was. The secret is
Sure.
that like he's basically said, you know, Ray Fiennes has been driven crazy by the fact that these like food critics and these like urbanites like took all of the joy out of cooking, and he's just like planned this whole night out where he's just gonna ramp things up and he's gonna kill all of them and himself and like burn down the restaurant. And like I guess the one wrench in it is Anya Taylor-Joy wasn't even really supposed to be there, so she is the one that gets to escape, because it's like she's just like, can I just have a cheeseburger? And like because like she sees a picture of him when he was actually happy making food at like a little local, you know, burger joint, and he's like, okay, like you're not a parasite, like, you know, you work in the service industry too, you know how to you know, like you're not part of this like parasite class, so you know you get to leave.
Yeah, I mean what's interesting. Do you know? I don't know if we're talking about movies or talking about food culture, but I mean, I did talk about this recently on the live stream about how I perceive the evolution of food culture going.
Yeah,
food
that's
culture when shifted. It seemed like food culture shifted from being make it at home to being be a good restaurateur sometime in the 2000s, in the right after the financial crisis, it seemed. And then it's gone from being kind of a restaurateur culture to being just like this, because now all the restaurants are horrible and expensive.
Yeah, like I mean, there's a few that I've been to that are nice. Like, I mean, I went to a really nice Cajun restaurant when I was in Savannah earlier this summer, but you know, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. Just a lot of service has been bad because there's also the labor shortage, and just it seems like now it's the era of Uber Eats, right? If you just get it
now
delivered.
It's the era of Uber Eats, and I think everyone's starting to realize how overblown I think when you go to a restaurant, you get kind of like a restaurant high. Then you eat the same food out of a styrofoam container, and then you realize that it's not all that great
like,
at all.
Something I've noticed when, like, because I try and make a lot more food at home just because it's easier, and like I like learning how to cook, because my dad was a chef for like decades, so he's been able to teach me a bunch of stuff. But like I've noticed this, like homemade food, it tends to taste fresher, less greasy, but like a little more inconsistent. Like you're not going to get like the same exact bite as you would at like a restaurant.
Yeah.
But that kind of makes it gives it more personality, and it's just like the fact that, okay, I made this with my own hands and I can trust, like I know where my hands have been. I don't know where the chef's hands have been, because people can get very disgruntled at fast food restaurants, and I don't know if I want them handling my food.
Well, that's always a problem, I guess. I don't know. I mean, restaurants where I live have become so insanely expensive that you take a family of three, and it's a pretty small family. You take a family of three out to even some very, very low end thing, and suddenly, you know, you're just you're out $100 really easily. And I don't know. I think restaurant culture has to die. I think this is something that, I mean, when I was a young millennial, the big thing was the dinner party. Do people still do that anymore? It seems like they don't. It seems like the dinner party culture is completely evaporated.
Like I haven't noticed. I mean, like my boomer parents will still do that sometimes, but not even. Well, that's really just when we have family over. But
I mean, do you so you notice that the dinner party culture is a kind of...
I was never I never even noticed that it was a thing among millennials, because I was always a shut-in, so I'm not the person to ask about that, about social trends.
Well, no, I'm just trying to get a sense of where food culture is going, because I always thought that an interesting way for the right-wing community to evolve would be to embrace a sort of slow food culture.
Yeah,
and that is, I mean, I don't think it's really materialized, largely because the millennials and the Zoomers that are in the right wing movement don't really have the experience to host this themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a lot of opportunities for people to do things in real life. We're hosting a banquet at a restaurant, but it's going to be very affordable, guys. So still check it out.
Yeah. I mean, this is. But everybody should check it out. I think it's a good idea.
No, it's no problem. But I mean, I think that a lot of the young people who see the world in a different way, the girls, they go out and they have dinner parties. They're social, but all the guys are like internet shut-ins, or a lot of them are. And so the culture is still kind of this really, really weird gender imbalanced kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've noticed a similar thing with where you are, but
I'm not the person to ask about social trends. I am an internet shut-in. I'm not proud of it, but yeah.
Well, I guess that's sort of all of us on here on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the sad thing is like when I used to be an evangelical, like I hung out with a lot of the people from there, and like, yeah, people were making food all the time, but like when we would hang out. But again, COVID and the fact that I crossed the Tiber kind of affected that. But
I think that there is just a whole bunch of opportunity here for doing things. I mean, there's the whole. You remember? I mean, were you part of this whole Slopgate thing that Sargon was doing?
Oh, just
about American food being horrible.
Yeah, and again, like, okay, yeah, probably right. Like what people think of American food, but you mentioned on your stream, right, that there is remnants of like some regional cuisine, but that ironically was still ultimately developed by the French. And like Cajun food is like this nice blend of like African and French cooking.
Yeah, I mean, I think regional food didn't develop in America because regional identity has never really developed outside of the South. Mm-hmm. And that's always been a big, I mean, there was a little bit for a while, there was this idea of like contemporary California cuisine. I think that was a thing that I think that's a thing because The Simpsons made a joke about it, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It seems like it makes sense that it was people were actually trying to do this, have a unique California identity. But that never actually panned out. Then it just became the same. There needs to be a word for slop that is high-end slop. Mm-hmm. What is the slop? What is the word for slop that our elites eat? I want to know that.
Pretentious slop, because it's like you have the same people that will say the peasants need to eat they will eat the insects and they will eat the bugs. The same people that will eat this disgusting I'm sure you've seen like disgusting videos of like people have like the gold foil painted over their chicken wings, or like
yeah.
Or like
I wonder how many people. That's probably for foreigners though. No Blue State foodie would be caught dead eating that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Or the camembert burger where the patty is just like a fried thing of camembert cheese. The second you bite into it, it just explodes, and it's like it's not even like about the taste of the food. It's just, I mean, rich people have always kind of done this, I guess, to some extent, of just doing things just to distance themselves from the plebs, but.
And that's one of the big problems is that this is one reason why Eat the Boogs will never be a thing, in my opinion, because no reigning aristocracy is will ever, if they do that, they're dead. I mean, they will discredit themselves as a ruling class, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And no one wants to do that. No one wants to. I mean, I guess they could try to do it, right? But it'll be disastrous for their cause, which is why I don't think Eat the Boogs is ever going to be a thing. I think it's just a pretension of the world of these like world economic forum types. And if they discard this, then anyone who picks it up will probably be the next ruling class.
Mm-hmm. Well, which again, it's just kind of. I think the future belongs to people that can actually dig deep roots and have a real culture. Just like I'm trying to rediscover because I know you talk about like you're of a Danube German ancestry predominantly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I am I guess I'm not a WASP anymore. I'm a WASC, but like I am very much of that Anglo-Saxon heritage. Like my tribe has basically been here for 400 years on both sides of my parents. And, it is kind of amazing it makes it kind of hard to, because I can sympathize now with the whole anti-immigrant and anti-Catholic sentiment of like the late 19th century. Because in a lot of ways they were very right that it was that mass immigration from like Italy and Ireland was eradicating Anglo culture in America. But at the same time, I am Catholic now, so.
Well, we have super chats. This is interesting, right? If you've ever talked to boomers, I don't think your parents probably aren't boomers, but mine are.
Oh, they are.
Anybody who knows boomers will know how much I talk about John F. Kennedy. I often wonder if John F. Kennedy is not a stand-in for America's failed ethnogenesis post Ellis Island. Like that was supposed to be the point at which Irish and Italians were going to become fully American, and there would be a new American identity that was neither attached to waspness nor was sort of this weird kind of self-flagellating post-civil rights kind of turbo America that you have in the woke era. I've always wondered if that was the case.
Well, we probably won't know, considering what happened when I'm not going to say who, but took him out in Dallas. Like I make the joke that I don't think the CIA killed MLK. I know they killed him.
Well, yeah, I mean the CIA. We have to.
The secret police, wonder. Like that's basic. That's them and the FBI. That is what they are. Is it like a secret police or?
Yeah, I mean they're the part of the American government that kind of rules, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what comes of it, I guess.
But yeah, it came out of like just needing a new ruling class, or just on food again is like it's just an amazing kind of talent for me that I've learned is like I can actually make this with my own hands, that I can make a ton of food for not very much, and it's actually edible. Like I had the perfect fall meal a while ago, which is like I treated myself. I'm not going to get this very often, but I got some like venison, sweet potatoes, red onions, mushrooms, and eggplant, and it was really good. And I felt like this is what you should eat during the fall.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great meal, like venison and all that stuff. I don't know if I was going to when Sargon came take him out to dinner, but he apparently just completely avoided the New York area. I took the southern route, so we'll have to do another time.
Yeah,
but this is the whole controversy of American food being terrible. Who knows?
I mean, it is when they keep talking about the ethnic food, right? What about the restaurants? What about the restaurants? That's why we need all the diversity. It's like the restaurants just turn into like questionable Chinese restaurants and more goy slop. That's just not, real or authentic. But yeah, I don't know why I was thinking this is completely out of the blue, but it's like I just remember you talking to Counterpoints, right? And just
that horrible debate.
I mean, again, it was funny you telling him to shut the fuck up. But
my wife found that incredibly entertaining. But yeah.
But like when he's talking about the Roman Empire, the Charlemagne tried to carry forth their legacy of like
the Roman Republic.
It's like okay, the when the Reich began, the Holy Roman Empire, I'm pretty sure reestablishing like republican governance. Okay, when you crown yourself like king of the Franks and the emperor, that is the most un-Roman republican thing you could possibly do.
No, it's just sort of this incredibly. I don't know where these ideas come from, and I'm most fascinated by people like Counterpoints because it's this. I have no idea where these ideas come from. Any history buff will tell you that this republicanism as an idea was considered incredibly discredited anytime after. I mean, anytime in between the maybe Cicero and Oliver Cromwell, the idea of republicanism was incredibly discredited.
Again, he wanted to bring up hey, there's republicanism or liberalism is like why the kings in England never got their heads cut off. Yeah, except Counterpoints, the English kings did get their head cut off by Oliver Cromwell. the 17th century was had a massive amount of bloodshed in England.
Yeah,
You've had a theocratic dictatorship for years and a civil war.
This is just kind of the entire debate bro culture that I can't die soon enough for me, but I really hate these characters. These people all respond by destiny. That's the original vampire of this phenomenon, and it can't die soon enough for me because it's just absolutely embarrassing how this has evolved.
I want you to take this seriously or shut up.
Yeah,
it's not you.
Yeah, no, but it's just the problem with the debate bro cultures is the lack of belief writ large, and I don't know where this ultimately ends up. Right? It seems like it's well, I know where ultimately it ends up basically in the bank accounts of these people's these grifters. But it's just until that point, it's this embarrassing phenomenon that we have to put up with. I mean, who knows?
It's that because I share the sentiment too, but you're definitely somebody I know that like treachery and people that don't believe in anything they're very irksome to you. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of having a discussion if people are stupid? That's fine. I actually that was kind of like a really big funny point where he tried to do this whole republicanism. It was spread by Charlemagne type deal. That's not the big problem with counterpoints. The big problem with counterpoints is just doesn't care about anything, and that's the same problem that's true with Destiny too. I mean, he comes off as caring about something, but
the fact that also people like Hassan, right? Is there anybody that takes him seriously? Like, I even know that, like, I think he had a Cenk Uygur come on, and even he was just like saying, "You're a fucking moron."
Yeah,
but, I mean, anybody.
And these people have this huge. It's kind of it's not. I mean, it's a little bit depressing, but these people have this huge followings online, and it dwarfs anything we're doing here. So it just gives you an idea of kind of what you're up against generally.
But again, I guess the saving grace is we actually believe in something. Hassan doesn't.
Yeah, the saving grace is that Hassan's not going to stick around after this becomes unfashionable. So that's the I'm the saving grace. I don't know. It is what it is, but it is what eventually the people who believe in what they say are going to win out over the people who are kind of grifting.
And it did bring, when you're talking about Matt Christman, just like that is what I don't know if he really necessarily believes it, but that is.
Oh, he's a believer. He is absolutely a believer. He's kind of a tragic figure, and I'm still trying to figure out what happened to him. But he's 100% a believer in progressivism. That is, that's one reason why I kind of like him, right? He almost has kind of a childlike view of the world. I mean, that's a very young man's perspective when
it is like the
same age as I am, but like he has a child's view of the world almost. It's kind of remarkable in its innocence.
Yeah, and you get that from like people that, and also like some classical liberals, like just this kind of idealistic view of the world, wherein humanity's gonna free itself from these shackles, or we need to do this to save the world, and just like that's just unfortunately not reality.
Yeah,
well, like the fact of the reason why the American projects failed is because. Turns out liberalism in that case is only sustainable in like high trust homogenous societies with limited voting franchises.
Well, we'll see. I mean, this is the whole thing with New York, is New York's now pleading for the immigration to stop, but I mean, it's not. I mean, Biden's trying to tap the brakes a little bit.
But every Western government keeps saying that they're going to tamp on immigration, they never do. Like,
well, they don't, probably because their entitlement programs, the model for their entitlement programs relies on the increasing population, and the second that their population doesn't increase, the banks are going to not lend them money. And so in lieu of that, I mean, the thing is that the money these banks lend them is never going to be paid back by these people. But if they kind of figure like, okay, well, immigrants plus AI means you give us a renewal on our loans and keep the interest rates low, then that's a believable story. Whereas we're going to go through a demographic austerity period is not a believable story, at least for people lending money. And so we're caught in this huge debt bomb. But and this is what we're talking to a friend that I met him for coffee this morning, and we were talking about various plans. And the thing is, it's not really a battle between us and any other idea. It's just a battle of people who know what time it is versus people who don't.
And again, that's why
you see this everywhere.
I find it fascinating sometimes looking at people that just refuse to I mean, a lot of boomers are like that, right? It's like me and Arjun suffered through the first Republican debate, and just like Mike Pence saying, like, trying to say like, oh no, America's not over, like everything's great, him just trying to assert that everything was fine, and America's still what America was in the 80s. Just these boomers cannot let go of the 80s in a lot of ways. Like the insufferable people that think that the pendulum shift is an actual thing, that like politics actually, it's not a pendulum, it's a ratchet. I love this. We had a stream a few years ago, I think with Settler's Lament, where somebody actually asserted that the pendulum was or that the ratchet effect was actually going the right wing, which
that was a left wing talking point, that there's a right wing ratchet to history. I have no idea how they reconciled this with this idea that they made progress in civil rights and all this stuff. This is I guess you'd have to believe something like this if you're a radical from the left wing point of view. But this is the battle that's going on with Christian nationalism and Netter. This is largely a Protestant battle. This is what Aaron McIntyre specializes in, is kind of red pilling the normies in this particular front,
which is, it's kind of fun to see, just because I think, as that was people like Russell Moore is what I started my channel on, was like when I kind of, because like I started it when it's like there was some evangelical event at like the end of 2015 that like had Black Lives Matter people there, and it ended with like this like fat black woman lecturing a bunch of like young white evangelicals on how horrible they were. And it's just like that, and it's like, I think back then, I think still there's a degree of truth to it, right, where it's the Trojan horse, where they start accepting the woke politics on race, they're going to start doing it with women and every other issue.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I think Aaron Wren is the person who has this. Evangelicals, their entire culture was developed over this idea that they would be winsome and win over the culture that way. And this winsomeness is just totally unsuited for the environment we are in now, where a majority of Christian enemies just are outright negative to this religion and will treat it with contempt. And the more you show weakness to this mode, this is what allowed the new atheists to win against their Christian interlocutors. The more you feed this negative reaction, the more it kind of caves in on you.
The cringe kind of 90s televangelists were just a nightmare PR wise.
They always associate televangelists more with like the 80s and the original Moral Majority 1.0. But there's definitely like a 90s version of like the wholesome Christian entertainer that even me in Blue America kind of was aware of as just this cringe figure.
Yeah, and I mean, are we that much better as Catholic? I mean, I guess we're not winsome. Seems like we're very cantankerous, but
well, I don't exactly know where exactly is the debate in Catholicism. I mean, it seems like there are a lot more abased Catholics, hypothetically, but
I mean,
there isn't like a debate where people are debating these ideas. I know certainly every cringe idea that's believed by Russell Moore has an equivalent in the Catholic Church. And
by Susan of the Parish Council.
Yeah, well, it's harder to detect, right? Because the direction comes from the Vatican. So the doctrine's not going to slide backwards, because if it does, the church will split. But at the same time, our leaders are just hopelessly lost in a world that no longer exists.
they are, I think in a short order, the leadership of the Catholic Church, the older ones, or at least most of them, a lot of them are probably either downright malicious because they're desperately trying to push the modernization project until, before Pope Francis dies, or they're just so unaware of what time it is.
Yeah, I hate to say this. I actually don't know how these people line up. I do know that the editor of First Things magazine, or a lot of the editors of First Things magazine, are aware of these post-liberal critiques. And certainly people like Patrick Deneen are, albeit you could argue that he's adopted a lot of the liberal framework in his critique. But these people are, this debate does not exist publicly for Catholicism like it does in these Protestant congregations. But and also you have the fact that these Protestant congregations are, they are very involved with the conservative movement in the way that the Catholic ones just don't see themselves as part of the classic conservative movement. And I've had a bunch of conversations with these people, and what you get is this really, first of all, like, every time I talk to one of these sort of boomer, anti-nationalist, liberal kind of conservative, principally against Christian nationalism, and by Christian nationalism, they just mean like any sane understanding of politics as it was imagined before 1920 in the Christian world, as it existed since Constantine. They always have this mode, and the first thing that they'll always inform you is like, these are just hard truths. Like, you have to accept them because they're hard truths. And then they'll basically lecture you on this idea that there's no Christian permission to do politics of virtually any kind in the Bible, which, there's a case for that in a sense if you want to be a complete pacifist. But then they'll kind of cut in the things they like as exceptions to the pacifism. And the things that they like are always kind of like these neoliberal projects, like the United States as a force in the world. The nation state is conceived in your typical boomer conservative patriotic Reagan Republican sense.
They're not birthed out of it's not birthed out of culture and ethnicity over centuries. It's birthed out of liberal ideas.
Yeah, so it's impermissible to do politics in a nationalist way. But if you want to worship the Constitution, then go right ahead. This is just like, this is nuts stuff. And the problem is that the problem is not that there has been interpretations of Christianity since time immemorial that have said, okay, you guys need to completely step back from politics. But this has almost always been accompanied by a similar stepping back from the world itself.
Yeah, you have,
from other sort of political idols. So you'd either have to become a monk or a Mennonite in order to make this move, because people understood that if you're commercially working for your own family and benefiting from the political order, it's unseemly to then turn around and say, well, Jesus forbade me from participating in this order when it comes time to actually sacrifice, put your life on the line to defend it.
It's like you have hello?
Can you not hear me? Can you not hear me?
No, I could. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it's like you have, like, I don't know, a difference between the Desert Fathers, right? And people who had to understand, or like the bishops that had to understand Clovis and Charlemagne as, like, okay, they may not be like moral paragons, but they're the only ones keeping the Muslims and the Vikings from killing all of us. So
yeah, I mean, this is
again, I just want to ask the anti-Christian nationalists, like, are you basically condemning every Christian that lived before like 1950 then?
Oh, they'd say yes to that, because this is sort of this added. I mean, this is a very Protestant perspective that, like, I read the Bible and came up with an innovation that no one ever saw. I don't speak Greek, I don't speak Hebrew, but like I read 5 passages, and then this is, if it's phrased in the right way, this is the problem, right? In order to understand this, you'd have to read the entire thing in its original language and become an expert in it. But no, I read 5 passages, so now I'm willing to condemn all previous Christians who have ever lived ever because of these 5 passages that are.
Or you have the situation where it's like a lot of it is just. I mean, there was like the Baptist landmarkists who like asserted that there was like some tiny sliver of like proto-Baptists that survived through Catholicism, but just. I mean, one of the main reasons it became Catholic is just the history didn't line up with the Protestant narrative, right?
Well, I'm not going to comment on Protestant versus Catholic. I didn't mean to
but
say I don't want to deal with theological debates on this thing, and I have a lot of good Protestant friends. But
No,
there is a certain Protestant mistake where you confuse sort of like your fascinations of the moment with some kind of deep theological reading, and they always phrase it like, "This is a hard truth. This is a hard truth." Well, I mean, like, okay, so like your hard truth right now is that I should just sit back, consume product, and endorse the political machinations of the age in the guise of egalitarian liberalism and anti-nationalism. That seems like the least hard truth I've ever encountered in my life. It seems downright easy.
It's just be nice and adopt corporate HR policies. That's a hard truth of Christianity.
Yeah. The hard truth is like, embrace nice guy Jesus, oppose nationalism, and eschew raw political power, but not the consumption habits that it generates. This is just not going to work as a serious ideology going forward, because the politics is causing people genuine hardship, and it's going to cause our children to live poorer lives than we do today. And to not politically try to fight for a better world, while at the same time we participate in whatever our situation is that we have on offer, that whatever is available to us with our privilege of being in the early 21st century. I don't know how that's very respectable at all in any evaluation.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's to quote Pope Francis, like, because I kind of get this feeling too of like him like saying some people want Christianity to be a country club when it should be like a field hospital. It's the people are kind of, they want their comfortable Christianity that is like still in line, that doesn't require them to sacrifice anything, but they still want to say that they're Christians, or they are, but
I'll take seriously their invocation to stand back from national politics when these guys come to me in sackcloth and ashes.
Yes,
because sackcloth and ashes is what I'm looking at for, if not my children, my grandchildren. And that needs to be seriously confronted. And unless you're just telling me that we all have to be poor, salt of the earth people, I respect that position. But I mean, you better be putting yourself first, because at this stage, a refusal to take these political issues seriously, specifically the ones having to do with boundaries and immigration and the practice of moral education inside a country, all of which are verboten under the liberal dispensation that we've lived under for the last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Not to participate in those particular issues, to essentially consign your children to poverty and a spiritually impoverished life.
And cultural isolation, if not
and
worse.
Culture. Yeah, and
so I mean,
you better be coming to me in sackcloth and ashes if you're saying that that's a fight that I have to stand back from, because what you're saying is that we have to agree to an impoverished existence for our grandchildren. I can't endorse that unless we're also impoverishing ourselves right now.
That, and also like there's the fact that like they'll say, I mean, the passages that they'll bring up, like, oh, love thy neighbor, or like welcome the stranger, of like, things that make sense in the context, of how you should act generally. They're the ones now applying that to how you should act in politics. And it's like, okay, but your native countrymen are also your neighbors, and is flooding your town with mass immigration loving those people as well? No.
Yeah, it's a very confused ideology. This is, but it's something that like is appealing to a lot of people, and we're gonna have to kind of get ourselves through this. And yeah, I'm not so sure. I feel kind of like it's kind of taking care of itself in a large part. I think.
I mean, that is the hope in Catholicism. I mean, in Catholicism, I think the
Catholicism. I hope it's a new pope, I suppose. But Catholicism is just going to be in limbo for the foreseeable future.
Finally retire, when like the liberal boomer bishops finally retire.
Yeah, our issue in Catholicism is very dire because of the fact that our inlet for new bishops all goes through the Francis pontificate of the stage. Mm-hmm. So Catholicism can't succeed by winning some kind of impression debate or by having a strong, I mean, it can win by having a strong ground game, in the sense that you could push over an institution that's obviously already discredited and humiliated into conceding to you, if you're the one running a strong ground game, if there's just no boomer ground game. But the path to victory it's not going to be like a Protestant path to victory where you just like, the other side gets humiliated because it can't answer basic questions, and then things change that way. You're remarkably more dependent on the Vatican.
Somebody in the chat said if a Pope-based obelisk the first comes in and clears the church, then I consider Catholicism. I became Catholic during the Francis pontificate. You should not become Catholic because of who's the Pope. You become Catholic because you believe it's true.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And we have to just get through this period of time.
But it's like, but on these deeper issues, it's why, like, as much as a fan I am of Catholic answers, because they are a big reason why I became Catholic. The problem is, like, they really don't have any answers for the broader culture wars. Like people like Trent Horn and people like that, like, I'll ask them and like they'll reply to me, but they just say like, oh, that's a different conversation that we can't have. And it's just like,
the culture war issue. Well, I mean,
yeah.
Which culture war issue are you talking about?
Well, just things on anything to do with like immigration or race or like, or if I ask, like, you shouldn't be like anytime you like make a video criticizing Father James Martin, I'm like, stop asking yourself, like, stop like responding to James Martin. You should start asking yourself, why are people like this even allowed to be, be vocal in the church?
Well, I mean, because he's got, the answer to that is pretty obvious. The answer to that is he's got friends in positions of power inside the church. Many of them which are in the Holy See at this stage. And so, like, I don't know what you're looking at them to say. I mean, they're going to say, I mean, this is always the problem, and this is why I'm very hesitant to discuss. I think the Christian nationalism thing is easy enough to discuss for me because it's phrased in political terms. But I'm very wary of trying to get priests to make political statements, because
but
their hands are tied, and they can't just like, they can't be like, oh yeah, the Archbishop, like, screw him. Like, it's just like, they have oaths of loyalty, and creating these huge clusterfucks inside a church. And if they start the political conversation, then you can have it, right? But trying to draw out elements of the Catholic Church into making broader statements is, I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for how to do that properly. It strikes me as being a problematic territory, and that's why I tend to avoid it.
I guess the best we can actually do is just try and be good in our own parishes and build our own communities, at least, because we at least have control over that.
Is your mic dragging? I'm hearing a
oh, sorry. Sound. Yeah, it was moving.
Okay. All right. Well, what else did you want to talk about? We're in
there is like one last. I think before we can go to super chats, I think the last kind of major topic I want to discuss is just kind of. I mentioned the need for new aristocrats, just because, like, this populism thing is just not going to work. Like, it fails because, like, the dirty. Like, I make this point is like, anytime my dad will complain about like, why aren't people protesting? Why aren't people protesting? Like, I have to say, well, Dad, the dirty secret of protests is that they only actually work when the people in charge tacitly support them already. Yeah. And the thing is, I was talking to you about this earlier, but there's a term you kind of came up with a while ago that I heard called the devastated American dipshit, that I become very intimately familiar with in my job. Like, not to get too personal, but I'm a quality assurance technician for a metal shop, and like so I kind of work in, it's kind of like a mix between blue collar and white collar, because I do a lot of like data entry and computer stuff, but I'm also like, getting my hands dirty measuring parts, and it's trained me to look for issues in quality. And I just noticed a lot of the people there that at my workplace, like, essentially a lot of it's they're the right-leaning equivalent of the bug men, in that they're obsessed with like consumerism, but on a slightly different, I guess, edge to it, wherein like, instead of Funko Pops, they're obsessed with like cars or like bikes or like stuff like that, or they're also addicted to porn, just like the left-wing bug men are. Like, they're the ones that like they have to have like the sexy bikini calendars posted up because they have to announce to the world that they are heterosexual manly men, and they're the ones that go to strip clubs, which I just can't ever. I mean, even if I wasn't a Christian, I could never see myself going there. It just seems so disgusting and low class. But like, it's the people that like, these are not like rednecks that are evangelicals. I wish I was working with evangelicals, because they at least tend to be a lot nicer, and I know they at least have a grounded like belief in God. I know we were talking about issues, but I'm like, you can at least have conversations about deeper issues because they believe in that. Whereas like the dads don't believe in anything. They're all divorced. They're all,
No, they probably do believe in something. They but don't have like the character or the integrity to kind of live it. I mean, I kind of know who you're talking about. They're kind of addicted to creature comforts. They don't like things to be too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And
they'll complain
I don't think
about Joe Biden, but they would never actually try and organize anything to disagree. Like they also love. They're probably pro-choice. Like they can be pro-choice. They can be pro-gay marriage and all that. Just because if it doesn't interfere with their like trailer trash libertine lives. Sorry, I'm getting a little mad. And like some of these people also just I come across as like complete sociopaths. Like after this is a story that reminded me of why HR actually does need to exist in certain cases. Like after the Nashville shooting, like one of my coworkers at my old job literally was celebrating that Christians got killed.
Okay, that's weird.
No, it's sociopathic and evil, but so I was like, hey. Yeah, this guy said something horrible.
Were they like a turbo progressor or something like that, or what?
No, or they were I know they were like kind of like a mix between like a redneck and like just a new atheist type. Just
well, yeah. I mean, I've seen actually a lot of that. That was one of as the new atheist movement got bigger, you could see like when it became a red state phenomenon, you'd have. Wasn't there a guy called like Dusty or something like that? That was this old new atheist.
Yeah.
He was, and he had this like he was like all into promoting pornography, and it turned out he had this grift operation going on the side.
Yeah,
maybe I'm forgetting this, but I seem to remember some like characters like this were appearing all over the place in new atheism as it got a lot older.
Yeah, it became there's like Goblet's Engineer too, who's like this a lot, and it's just like you take all the Southern charm out of it too. Like their voices just become grating and annoying instead of kind of charming, like a lot of Southern accents are.
No, I mean it's really obvious they're just kind of aping the old hand-me-downs. I mean they always get this stuff like they always get to these trends when they're sort of past their expiration date in blue states. Like they get to them like now it's cool to be an atheist, and it's like what 2016, 2017. I'm like, well, maybe.
And there are people that still think, there's still people think that. I mean, there's still people that think that now. Like, there's still like new atheists now, and it's just hick libs. Somebody pointed out.
Yeah.
Just but yeah, it's like I have the story of like my coworker is like an old boomer, and like he's nice enough, but it's like there are people that they're incredibly complacent. Like on my first day, I just noticed there was like a caked layer of dust all over all the parts, all the boxes, everything in our office. And it's like just the concept of, hey, you should clean this because it's not good to work in filth just did not occur to him. And like I love this, like he gave me some great boomer advice a couple of weeks ago where he's like, yeah, you should think about getting some property. I had a brother-in-law, after his divorce, well, because they're boomers, they always get divorced, got himself like a trailer, he goes to, for like 25 grand. I'm like, oh, that's something great to look forward to. I get my cuck trailer after my divorce. Sounds like a wonderful future.
I mean, a lot of this thing is these people are not properly educated. They don't have anything to look up to. And
it's why like you need aristocrats, you need nobility, not like I was looking at the stage, like I'm just thinking, I want to just ask people is like, look at the stage of the Republican candidates and say, do any of these people espouse any sense of nobility? No. Like I don't, we don't need like a man of the people or a populist leader. Like you need the people that, well, it's like you need the people that can wear the robe, that can wear the regalia and not be kind of shy about it. Like, didn't Fulton Sheen kind of epitomize this, right? When he had the most popular TV show in America in the 50s, and he would go out in his full, archbishop's regale, vestments, and, spoke very intellectually, and everybody liked him. Can you still hear me?
I cut the last part, kind of cut off a little bit. I think I got the gist of this, but
yeah, Sheen embodied kind of a noble persona, and you need that because it trickles down to the poor. Because whilst the rich always have the habit of trying to distance themselves from the plebs are always trying to emulate the rich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was hoping Peterson might have been that, but it seems like he kind of fell off the wagon somewhere along there.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we can go to super chats here.
Sure.
They're on Entropy, so people will use the link. If not, I'll just be reading them aloud because I don't have the ability to project them here. Gray Smog for $10 says, "Hey Dave, have you ever watched Bluey? I've heard parents online heap praise upon praise of it."
Oh, my niece and nephew love it.
Bingo was supposed to be checked out. Dad, glad the exec snipped that in the bud. I don't know. Have you seen it, Fritz?
I've seen a little of it because I have young niece and nephew. They really like it. Yeah, I mean, it seems
like Blue's
nice enough.
Clues. Is it different than
it's an Australian show about like a little dog family, and I think from what I know, there's like nothing paused in it at all, or the only thing people complain about is that it was making their kids have Australian accents. But
well, my kid already grew up with the Wiggles, so I think that ship might have sailed if he starts having an Australian accent. But that was our go-to entertainment. Now he likes Peppa Pig.
Yeah,
so there's that. What?
No, yeah, I was going to agree with you there. Yes,
Peppa Pig. I think was it Poe the person. Always, she pointed out early on that Peppa Pig is kind of there's sort of a Homer Simpson effect with the daddy pig, or it's just always like this goofy oaf, So you have this kind of thing going on in this, but it's too innocent to ever walk into that too harshly.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, do you have more to say?
No, I was just mentioning Play. That's all I know about it, though.
Gray Smoke for $15 USA. The best video games are roguelike games. Actually, like the original Rogue game, Rift Wizard, Angband, Evil Hack, Dwarf Fortress, Cogmind, or COQ. I don't need to explain this position. I'm just right. I don't know any of those games other than Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know, the roguelike is a genre of like it tends to be difficult games where like when you die, you go back to the beginning of the game, but like you get better. Like the actual game itself is supposed to be fairly short, but you get like better and better at it, and you can get power-ups. Like I'm playing Hades right now, which is a really good one, where you're like the illegitimate son of the Greek god Hades, and you're just trying to escape the underworld. And like you get a lot of kind of fun stuff from like the Greek gods, and Greek mythology is always fun. So,
that's good. I can't really comment on that, but thank you.
No, it's fine.
Grace Mug for $3 USA. I'm 18 today. Should I do anything because of that? I don't know. If you're Canadian, you can have a glass of alcohol, but if you're American, you have to wait 3 more years.
You can have a cigarette, which I would not recommend.
I don't know who knows 18. And I mean, if you're 18, you're in the prime of the Zoomer generation. I mean, all I can say is try to be social. For the love of God, just try to be social. Try to develop a group of friends, because so few Zoomers have friends or any really understanding of themselves outside of the internet, and you just have to fight that with every element of your being, because the ability of the internet to suck you into things is incredibly depressing. Any comment?
No.
What did you do when you were 18? I don't think what I did
Um,
when I was 18. I mean, when I was
well,
literally when I turned 18. I mean,
I
that
was
was like my
working.
senior year of high school. I was, I don't know. Yeah, I had kind of a. I was just finishing up high school. That's all I can think of, right? I knew I hung out with friends, certainly.
Yeah, I hung out with some friends afterwards, but it was just kind of excited to go to college because I did not have a good time in high school. I was just looking forward to a fresh start in college, which I had a lot more fun with, and it was kind of fun though. That in like senior, although technically that was when I was 17, but like my senior year, it was like able to get real with a lot of the people that I had kind of grown up with, and realizing
Mhm.
like, wow, the like your thing on the jocks is right. Like a lot of the jocks are actually a lot nicer and better people, and just like it was kind of nice being able to be real with them. Just like, oh, these are people that you can just have a nice conversation with.
Yeah, jocks tend to be a little bit more well-rounded. I mean, this is like I'm saying, women don't go for muscle, they go for men who have the maturity to deal with other groups of men in a fair and equitable way. So
Mhm.
if you can operate inside of a group of men and kind of find your place in the pecking order there, and it's not like at the very, very bottom, like you can kind of hold your own inside the middle of the pack, or especially if you're at the top of that pack, that's just catnip for women. But if you can hold your own in the middle of like a pack of men and you have a role to play in it, that is the way that you kind of develop self-confidence, and that's what women go for. And they go for jocks not because of the muscles, because of their ability to hold themselves in that way, just generally in society. So yeah, I don't know. That's that roundabout
So,
answer
yeah,
from
so I
you when you're
guess yeah,
18.
your advice for when you're 18 is beat up some nerds.
Yeah, hey, if it's a collective effort, I don't know.
I
The
mean,
Revenge of
we
the
see what
Nerds.
happens when we let the theater kids take over.
Yeah, ruled by theater kid. I think about that more and more every day. It's just that's so much the entirety of what the left is. You look at this. You look at people like Nathan Robinson and this whole crowd of eh, millennial intellectuals on the left. That's all you can think about is theater kids, theater kids, theater kids, theater kids, and it's just all fake.
Mhm.
It's all
And
affectation.
it's the culture that was raised on the movies where jocks are like sociopathic, insane meatheads, but the nerds are also like gross perverts. But I guess they're the good
Yeah,
guys.
there's definitely a division between like the nerds and the theater kids that sort of got broke down somewhere in the 2000s. In
Mhm.
the 2000s, like the nerds and the theater kids started becoming intermixed, and that's where you get these things like this phenomenon like the Guild and Dr. Horrible's sing along blog and this
Oh
stuff.
yeah, just
uh,
now looking back
yeah,
at that, like the only kind of culture from that, like me and Arjun are kind of we're rewatching The Office again, and I'm just thinking, man, that show feels so kind of quaint now. Just
but it's having a resurgence of popularity. It's
it is
having a
because
resurgence of popularity.
the show essentially that tried to build itself as like, oh, it's like it's Dilbert the live action series of like, here's the catharsis of how stupid this like your white collar job is now, especially after COVID. It's like it's become comfort media because it's like, oh, you have like this group of people that kind of all know each other that get together and like, yeah, you have your dumb but
You work
well-meaning
together, right?
boss. Yeah, and it's like, there's also I just noticed like I don't have to dress up for work because I work in a factory, but like this the idea of like even it's like everybody's wearing their suit and tie, everybody's like dressed professionally, and you just kind of have this. It's this era of like it's the thing that like I would complain most about my job is just the lack of professionalism, even with people like Michael Scott, right? But
Yeah.
it also contributed to like the popularization of nerd culture because who's the most popular character that everybody liked on The Office is Dwight, who was like a classic nerd, but a nerd in a way that
Well,
was
no, I mean, Dwight was not a classic. I mean, Dwight was this sort of parody of this Midwestern old German, like
yeah, the fact
he's
that he
like this
lives on like a
old order.
farm.
It's this old sort of like Anabaptist German like thing. He's like this throwback to this old world that's somehow been merged in with modern office culture.
Mhm.
and treats his boss like he's some kind of king or something like that, and
Yeah.
has zero sense of humor.
That, and it's like, and he's a lot better than, I don't know, Sheldon Cooper, right? Where that's just a walking stereotype of nerd culture where, oh, you have to like every single like nerd culture thing and like every single pop culture. And it's like, no, that's not
Well, I
how
mean,
humans work.
you know, the Sheldon Cooper, it's the thing about that character is that it's transparently Dwight works because the author is making fun of something that he had a personal experience of, which means
Mhm.
that it is what comedy should be. It should be the satire of something that you see and you kind of love, but you can also see the flaws of it, which they don't themselves see. What makes Sheldon Cooper, I don't know, Sheldon from Big Bang Theory insufferable is that it's a humble brag. It's the authors bragging about how cool they are and how smart they are, and we're supposed to accept that this is some kind of satire.
Mhm.
And it really isn't. Like, there's not really this person is, there's no way that this person is real. The whole character hinges on the fact that this guy is some kind of super genius because he can do both like advanced math and advanced physics at the same time, and it has unrealistic amount of time to spend on nerd hobbies as well. And he's
Which
completely
again, I find it
autistic.
funny that like you have the situation where two like PhD physicists can afford the same apartment on the same floor as somebody that works at a cheesecake factory, but I guess that's California prices.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're that's not, that might be the most realistic thing about that entire show. But the problem is that The Office is, it just kind of shows you how one generation's kind of hell is the other person's paradise. And it's kind of funny when you think about it too. I mean, the whole thing is, the whole Office's idea was that like everybody in the office is just kind of like, they're just bringing their whole selves to work. They're just, especially the boss, especially the straight white male boss who's a walking HR violation, and the only person who is able to, who's kind of like intimidated and meek and hiding, is the HR representative.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the exact opposite of everybody's experience with offices. It's just,
yeah, it's like, now imagine like Michael Scott trying to deal with, you know, Karen in the HR department, like the large woman, you know, who's just ready to go to corporate every 5 seconds, or you really
yeah, and then
shouldn't be saying that, Mike.
Everyone just shuts up and doesn't do anything fun for the entire show. That would be it, right?
Well, apparently they are going to reboot The Office, I've heard.
Yeah, I have this.
It's going to be
watching.
horrible.
They were going to rewatch. How are you going to do this? It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah, you can't do that. That's
show.
what she said. You can't do any of the because, and the thing is, it's like,
well, they're going to try doing that. They're going to try to make like the white male does objectionable thing. But the problem is that the modern audiences don't feel that way about white men who say offensive things. They want them. In 2005, the white male saying objectionable things was stupid, and you could laugh at him, and he was funny, and he's the butt of all the jokes. But like, he still got to come back for the next episode. In 2023,
he's
that person
canceled
is
and
removed.
probably in jail.
Yeah, is removed, and so there's only a few ways they could play it. They could play it for a modern millennial audience where this person is just a total horrible person, and it becomes sort of like a girl power thing or whatever. Or they could just wokeify it somehow, and then it would be, I don't know. I mean, millennials just don't have the kind of self-awareness to make this funny. It's a Gen X thing. Mm-hmm. It's a Gen X thing, and Mike Kolska only makes sense as a Gen X figure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, Nerve and VMaker for $50 USA says the Soulborn games are very interesting and could make great content for a distant content creator. Dark Souls is a very Spenglerian creation. I agree with that. Yeah, very much so. The cyclical history is in very a way, much involved. Let me finish here.
Oh,
Chris.
Sorry.
The world is in its winter, and characters only stave off instant insanity by clinging to their duty and honor. The player either prolongs the civilizational winter or ends it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is another way you look at it is, as considering that these are Japanese games, the Buddhist elements of it really can't be, because you can definitely see of like, oh, you have the kind of Faustian spirit that's like Dark Souls begins with like this kind of Zeus-like figure beating like these eternal dragons and like establishing the order of the gods, essentially like Zeus overthrowing the Titans. But it
They're
has
Japanese games. Are they Japanese?
Oh yeah, yes, they're very Japanese games, but they're really good at like having Western window dressing on it. But like,
interesting.
You have like the fact that there's this kind of natural cycle that it's probably better just to accept that entropy and the ebb and flow of the universe kind of happens. And Bloodborne is actually kind of similar to that. Is like people trying to fuck with the natural order just leads to massive bad consequences, because the villains, quote unquote, in Bloodborne are also just like, hey, we know that there's like these eldritch beings and we could like use their blood to like make us immortal and like cure all diseases. But then it's like that kind of comes back to them. And yeah, it's I was thinking I'd love to see it, like if you ever wanted to, is like you and Helen should play it on like her channel and just switch over every time you die, and I can make fun of you in the chat, because the games are kind of known for being quite difficult. But
I don't know if we have the ability to stream 3D games. That's a pretty hard thing.
The game came out in 2011, so
I don't know. We've had a hard difficulty with this in the past.
That's
we don't
fine.
Really have a gaming computer in the house, but maybe. I don't know. I feel like my days of playing AAA games are officially over. If it's not a paper game that just happens to exist in digital or turn-based, then no, I don't know. Or if it's something that I know from my childhood, like StarCraft or whatever, I don't know. It's be hard to get into.
I mean, I can just stream it myself. I'd like to go through those games again.
For a while, you were doing game streams, right?
Yeah, and you get back to it's all about forming habits. Like my priest always talks about priests or good habits.
Well, that's the thing about being a YouTuber is you can actually. You have to. This sounds horribly cliche, but you have to have a brand when you do YouTube. You have to be able to tell people what's on your channel, what they can expect from their channel. If you're doing video essays, like my bread and butter is video essays, and I happen to do live streams, but you have to be able to tell people, okay, this is what's on the channel. This is what, and you don't even necessarily have to publish that often, but people have to understand that this is the kind of thing that you do. And you have to establish that you're doing that thing. And that's what kind of allows you to make a blogging career more or less successful. I don't know. I wouldn't call myself a big YouTuber, but I'm medium sized as far as political YouTubers go in this sphere. But anyway. All right. Gray Smog for $25 USA. I've seen people post some very personal stuff on TikTok. Infant loss examples given. And they sometimes add pop music or TV quotes over very touching and human moments. What do you think drives people to post this very personal stuff on TikTok? And why add tacky and superficial sounds over these moments? I think TikTok, I have never seen a good TikTok. I mean, usually every now and again, you find something that's emerged from a social media platform you hate, like Instagram, that's good. But I just have no use for TikTok. It's like voyeurism and borderline personality disorder, the social media platform. It's all people trying to just grab fleeting attentions for 15 minutes with the over dramatized thing of the day. And I can't stand it at all.
People on don't even act like humans.
Yeah, they act like AI. And it's horrifying. It's disgusting. I can't say enough bad things about it. It could be a Chinese psyop for all I know. It very likely some of them are. And I have nothing good to say about this social media platform at all. It's very popular among progressives, but it's not actually unsurprising that, with the exception of Twitter, which we now dominate on because we have a non-hostile party who's in charge of it, conservatives or non-progressives are the most dominant on the platforms that have long-form content. YouTube, Substack. That's where we shine. The ones where you actually get to play out an idea in long form. The ones that are flash in the pan, hey, look at me now. That stuff is going to be progressive and always going to be progressive. And it's always going to be kind of disgusting. I don't know what to say about TikTok and the horrible things people put on it. Infant
Yeah,
loss,
I don't.
TikTok.
The only things I've seen from TikTok is a guy posting his dog, and that's the only thing. I'm like, I don't ever want to see humans on TikTok. Again,
I'm sure there's
not
some
even
good
they are.
cat videos. I'm sure there's some great cat
Yeah.
videos on TikTok, but there were great cat videos on Facebook back in the day. This is not something we need a new social media platform, guys.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. TikTok is cancer because, and I even hate. I'm starting to hate X more and more, which is like, you know, I think either Elon Musk is going to make Twitter really good, or he's going to crash the platform, and either way, it's a good thing. I think.
Well, I need X because it's the Rolodex we currently use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you come in contact with? Like, it's what links us to the mainstream conservative movement. It's what allows us to organize. We need a social media platform that everyone's on in order to weave together these institutions that we're trying to pull into existence very, very slowly and with a lot of errors. And I don't know, without X, I'm not so sure how any of that works, or Twitter. We should be calling it X, but because I refuse to rename this stupid thing.
Yeah, Elon Musk has a lot of good ideas. He's just not very good at naming things, like that SpaceX, the Cybertruck.
No, he just wants everything to be unified under one platform.
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Okay, next one. Hunger. Hey, how's it going, man? Hunger for USA $5. The Nightmare Before Christmas will always be a personal favorite of mine. Every Halloween. What are your thoughts on Tim Burton in general? Good movies and terrible fan base.
I hate him. I hate his style. I despise. I hate the I've only seen some of the movies, but I never really liked Nightmare Before Christmas. Like everything about like just kind of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie is disgusting nightmare. That the Alice in Wonderland is probably one of the worst movies ever made.
I hated Alice Wonderland. That's one of my least favorite movies that's ever been made ever. I did a whole movie. I did a whole video on that movie. Nightmare Before Christmas was okay. I remember it being okay, but I never really found any of the songs that catchy. There was one total earworm that was like the Boogeyman song or whatever that was just like you couldn't get it out of your head.
Well, the villains always have the best songs in these like old kids movies, don't they?
But Danny Elfman just does not do it for me. Early Tim Burton, though, I mean, we watched Beetlejuice. That was pretty good.
I haven't seen that in like 20
Very
years.
young Alec Baldwin and Michael Keaton did a pretty good job. What were the other early Burtons?
There was
Batman,
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Sleepy Hollow. Was that Burton?
Pee-wee's Big, yeah, that and Ed Wood.
Okay. That makes sense. Oh, I'll stand by Ed Wood. Ed Wood's good. Ed Wood's very good.
I think it's just the charm.
I would even kind of defend Mars Attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you can see a better Tim early movies that would have done something more adventurous before he kind of became just an old boomer who. And I will kind of stand by Sweeney Todd. I mean, it was Todd, and I do like Stephen Sondheim, so I'll say that if he has all right material, then he doesn't make terrible movies. But Tim Burton, it's a very big missed opportunity for me. And of course, like Tim Burton's he is just the absolute king of the theater kids, right? I will stand by Beetlejuice. I will stand by Ed Wood. I will stand by. I feel like even Corpse Bride had some stuff going for it as well, right?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, when it comes to like the stop motion stuff, I feel like Leica Studios blows them out of the water, just in terms of craftsmanship. And I think Kubo was really, really good, and I really liked Coraline. Missing Link, I wish it would make more movies, but problem is that like they'll make these unbelievably beautiful movies that I can't even tell at certain scenes that it is stop motion really says something. The problem is that the movies are so expensive to make, and they don't make a ton of money, so they can't really make them very often.
I just looked at Tim Burton's filmography, and there's Beetlejuice 2 scheduled for next year.
Oh boy.
Oh my, come on, man. Come on. he didn't even have all that many great movies. He has more bombs than he has hits at the stage. He's Ed Wood, Beetlejuice, Batman, Edward Scissorhands. I'll stand by that movie too.
And
right?
like
I'll stand
Nightmare
by that
Before
movie.
Christmas, people like.
Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas. So there's like about 4 or 5 good movies, and then there's just this huge list of bombs that we all know and we don't need to go over.
People have even turned on like the 1989 Batman as not being all that good.
It's definitely a flawed creation. It's definitely a flawed creation. It has its moments, and for its time, it was a very good movie, but it didn't know whether it wanted to be silly or serious, which is the really big problem with it.
And as much as I like the Nolan ones, I think they lean just a little too much on the serious side, or they should have not cast Christian Bale as Batman.
I think Christian Bale was good casting. I think his the affected voice he does as
Batman that's the
and
thing
that's not Bale's fault. That's Nolan's fault, because this Bale is speaking this into the camera. But if they just if they made it quieter and they dropped the bass on it, and they cut out some of like the throat action that you constantly get, it would have sounded really cool. So I mean, that was a complete
terrifying.
Yeah, and it would be, it would play a great Bruce Wayne. So that was Nolan's fault. That wasn't Bale's fault. 21st Century Reaction says for $3, would you like to become Saints and try to help prevent World War III? Would Dave like to become a modern day G.K. Chesterton? And would Fritz like to become Imperial? Let's find out at 21st Century Reaction on Twitter. Well, we're in contact, so we can have those conversations in private. But thank you very much, 21st Century Reaction. I remember you from the streams on Settlers Laments channel. Asteroidal Assassin for $5 USA. I already said this in a tweet, but the Palestine winning would be beneficial because it means less immigration crisis. Generally, you should always be against injustice rather than neutral. Keep in mind your tax dollars go to Israel. Yeah, I mean, Asteroidal Assassin, my policy with these things is always to urge for peace. Cheering on a foreign war that my people have no stake in and that I'm not going to fight in seems unseemly. I understand that Israel has done many bad things to the Palestinians, and I sympathize with that. And obviously, I want to end the immigration crisis, but what ends immigration crises are peace. And I wish there was some responsible party in the modern world that could guarantee a peace in this region of the world that would allow Palestinians to hold their head up high along with the other occupants of Palestine. But there's no responsible authority to do that, and it would be utterly unseemly for me to cheer on one side of a bloody war where there's grievances on both sides when I'm not spilling my own people's blood in that, because that would prolong a conflict that is going to kill more people. And and there's no I apologize. I feel bad for I know you're of Arab descent, or I think you're of Arab descent, if not Turkish. So maybe if you're Turkish, you don't have skin in this game, literally. But I understand, like, there's legitimate grievances, and my heart goes out to that. But I just think I'm so tired of this. Like, I'm on Team Ukraine, I'm on Team, Russia, and like that's a conflict that's much closer to my own ethnicity, and I can't imagine being on Team Russia or Team Ukraine. It seems completely unseemly to me.
Yeah, I am not Turkish. Somebody asked in the chat. Though I would say that I think you even mentioned that, a lot of these issues weren't even really that bad under the Ottoman Sultanate. Like, a competent sultan, the governor was actually...
Yeah, I mean, the Ottoman Empire was our mortal enemy, but it kept the peace in the Middle East. It was it was an effective monarchical system, and there's just nothing like it in the modern world. And these proxy wars between other kings, basically.
I'm reading right now, or I started reading like a whole history of the Ottoman Empire, and I think I know by the end of it, I'm just gonna have a seething hatred for Kemal Ataturk. Just because, like, the whole
I respect Ataturk. I mean, you have to respect him, though. He brought stability to his people. I mean, like. I mean, there's a reason why people love him, because he was a king. I mean, Turkey could have... I've learned to kind of... I don't even understand why I would hate Ataturk, other than him ethnically cleansing Greeks out of Anatolia, which, I appreciate that's a bad thing to do, but at the same time, what would have secured, like, his people are the Turks.
Mm-hmm.
What is he supposed to do? What other than what he did is the responsible thing to do for his people? And if I can't answer that question, find it very difficult to judge a person historically for that. Like, at least with Tokugawa, I could be saying, like, okay, you should have been Oda Nobunaga, right? Tokugawa could not have been Oda Nobunaga, but like, presuming, like, you could at least imagine a better way of handling the Christian problem in Japan than what he decided to do. With Ataturk, the problem is I can't imagine what was the move he was supposed to make. Like, okay, we'll just be like, we'll get shoved into, Eastern Anatolia or something like that as a people.
Well, yeah, I know it's not so much like, rallying the Turks against, further disintegration by the Allies, but it's more just like the secularization and the kind of the end of the Ottoman rule, of the Sultan's rule, really.
Yeah, I think that the victors of World War I had more to do with that than Ataturk. Ataturk was fighting for the Sultanate Gallipoli. When I think he was very much more of a Putin character. He was a person who was in a position to. I mean, this is what I do admire about Putin, although he's a bad guy in other regards. But he was at a position of extreme weakness for his people when a previous order fell, and he did what he thought was necessary. And it's a hard person to judge.
Russia is not in the position it was in like 2000s.
Yeah, and it was in a very bad place in 2000. And I don't. That is not excuse Putin's, but it is to appreciate Putin as a historical character and to provide some dignity for people who fight in wars, which I think is I find that the most disgusting thing about the millennials is how they scoff at losing sides in wars when these people must be people must be under there are villains in history, I think, but I can recognize people who were operating under very difficult circumstances, and I want to be respectful of that.
Even I, like, for that 98-year-old Ukrainian Waffen SS, like, I think me, you, and Arjun, we all did like streams kind of coming to the same conclusion, right? Is that if you're having to choose, regardless if you're, some groups it might have been a little easier because like Polish people under the Nazis and Jews, obviously, but like if you're Ukrainian, German, or Hungarian or I think you did say Bulgaria wasn't on the Eastern Front. They were in World War II, but
I haven't said anything about Bulgaria.
Okay. Never. It was I think something you said to stream a couple weeks ago, but never mind. The point is that this is not an easy decision for these people to make, especially like. I've
definitely said something about Hungary. I've definitely said a lot about Hungary, but never Bulgaria. But go ahead.
But like even thinking about like an example I used was Andrei Vlasov, who was like a Russian general, who formed the during the Operation Barbarossa started forming the Russian Liberation Army against the Soviets, and you just got to think like, well. Germany's invading my country, but Stalin's also destroying it from the inside. But it's just the millennial mindset, right? It's what Arjun calls it, the Ukraine cinematic universe, right? Where people just have to compare it to Marvel movies and Harry Potter because they don't know anything. They don't know anything else.
Yeah, I just don't want to. That's Riddle Assassin. That's why I don't want to get involved in this. I don't want to become part of the Israeli cinematic universe, but I also don't want to become part of the Palestinian cinematic universe, right? I want to offer my sympathies for your people, but my condolences will go all around, and my prayers are always towards peace and order in foreign lands where I don't have a stake, as they should be for all of their people, because I don't have a skin in this game, and I don't want to.
Because you have to remember that these are humans, these are people.
Yeah, there's that. There's also just like we're just not involved in this. Like it requires involvement to pronounce moral judgment for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one is Leo John Guinid for $3 USA. Hey Dave, StarCraft public free for all stream when? Public free for all StarCraft when? I suck at StarCraft at this point in my life, but that might be fun. Like a free for all StarCraft. Free-for-alls are always a mess. Do you play StarCraft, Fritz?
Never have. I was a Age of Empires kid growing up.
Really? Okay. Everyone. I mean, Okay, so I guess StarCraft 2 isn't very popular, but
No, it's popular. I was never into anything, but I've never played anything by Blizzard. So,
well, StarCraft is one of those classic games. Well, it sounds like a good idea, John, but or Leo, I should say. But if I were going to do any kind of let's get everyone in our community together to play, even though we suck, it would probably be chess. And I suck at chess. But it would be fun to see how it stacks up.
I'm super rusty at it. I used to be in the chess club in middle school, and I did pretty good then. I won a bunch of matches against a guy wearing a necklace of chicken bones. That's the most memorable thing I remember.
Yeah.
Just kids having to be weird for the sake of I'm weird and pay attention to me. I was kind of like that, but...
Leo John Gned for another $5. The guy who asked, what do you do when you're 18? I missed out on honing my artistic abilities during my early years. Use this time when you're at your most energetic to try achieving mastery over something that you're talented in. Yeah, I mean, if I was 18, I was having problems with women, what I would do is I would learn the acoustic guitar. Are you kidding me? Like, I was playing the violin then and I got out of it, but I should have just picked up the guitar and learned it really, 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 really well, because that would have solved so many awkward. I mean, when you're young, like girls go for the superficial stuff, like you're good at an instrument or something like that. But maybe that's a horrible thing to say, right? That's a horrible thing to say, because you should be developing the art for its own sake. But I mean, that's the time to put your skills into something that you love and that makes you a more impressive personality, and that you'll have for the rest of your life is something that you can do with a reasonable amount of competence. Any comments on that one? Or
no,
go on?
No.
Okay, another one from Leo John. A drag performer here in the Philippines got arrested for dressing up as Jesus and mockingly singing Our Father in one of the shows.
Good.
I believe he deserved it, but do you think arresting him was the right move politically? Well, I mean, it's going to piss off the State Department, right? But it's probably not going to piss off the State Department enough for them to open up a democratic row with the Philippines, especially if they're worried about Taiwan, which everyone in the State Department is right now. So I would imagine more fluxes like this coming out of places like Singapore and the Philippines, where they do things that openly flout State Department policy. And then what are you going to do about it? Like, maybe we'll allow China to open up a naval base, like on one of our unoccupied islands. Like, that's something we could do. So I think that this is just real politics. People are pulling away from the United States security network now that it's demonstrating that it's so weak. So
especially if God willing, the war in Ukraine ends soon, like they've gotten so much to the point of anything less than like Putin gets replaced in every bit of territory that Russia's occupied, from like not just the Donbass but also Crimea, goes back to Ukraine, will be seen as a defeat for the State Department, which that is not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think Argent makes the point, because he does a lot more of this stuff, right? Is that Russians would sooner resort to nukes than like lose Crimea.
Yeah, it's I don't want to comment on this, but it's the social media perspective on this war is unhinged from reality, as far as I can tell. And you've got a lot of ex-skeptics that were anti-SJW or people back in the day just going whole hog on these,
and like the whole thing of like, oh, the great counteroffensive, like when people are releasing like cinematic trailers for it, and you have that like insane transgender person, right, that was like the spokesperson for the Ukrainian military.
Yeah. That like, embarrassment. Oh my god. Yeah.
Well, and apparently recently, like, they've been removed from their post because they like, it was revealed that like, oh, they like the Ukrainian intelligence has like a hit list of people. One of them was Alexander Dugin's daughter, and another one is like, if you know who Jack Posobiec is on Twitter, like he's a conservative pundit. I know him. Yeah. Like he apparently was on there too for criticizing the war.
Well, I mean, we don't even go further. We both talked to someone who's on their hit list. Coach Red.
Yep.
Weren't you on the stream with him?
Yeah. No,
He's currently sitting trial in Ukraine at this state as we speak. So,
and it's like, so that's great that U.S. citizens are threatened by a country that is receiving U.S. aid.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I find I don't want to comment on Russia versus Ukraine or Israel versus Palestine, but I can speak from my own country. And I can say from the bottom of my heart, I am absolutely disgusted with the US State Department and the CIA and every element of the deep state. And these things need to be fundamentally reset at all levels. And that is my foreign policy position. And until that happens, all I can do is apologize for the horrible things that we do on the world stage and how we turn people's suffering into an entertainment product. And I don't know what else to say until this thing is reformed in a fundamental way. Anyway, why we lose for $5? I'm pretty worried about my job prospects after finishing a PhD program. Is there a future in industry? Academia is basically hopeless if you aren't diverse. Keep up the good work. I really enjoy your content. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I'm working a job based on my PhD for what it's worth. A lot of it, I would say 90% of it doesn't involve anything I learned in my PhD. And even that 10% is pretty generous. Every now and again, it involves knowing something that I know because of my PhD. But I don't know, a PhD basically means that you have enough intelligence to publish a paper, I guess, which, depending on your field, means various degrees of things. Look, I mean, the academy hasn't collapsed yet. So if you have a PhD, even one in a subject that does not confer direct skills, just someone's going to hire you probably to do something, and then just treat that PhD as a job. It's part of your resume. You learn stuff, and then have a story about what you learned when you were doing your PhD, and use words like managed, wrote, published, taught, like, you know, action verbs, and then that will be a professional way forward. You're right. I think the academy is kind of declining steeply at this stage in our civilizational collapse. So I wouldn't put my hopes there. But a PhD means you were able to persist through something, so it's worth something.
I mean, I've myself feel like I only have a bachelor's degree, but like I feel like I've only now just kind of passed the threshold of like desperately grasping if I want a new job to wherein like I'm confident I can get a decent job now just because I have enough work experience. And it's like the hardest thing is like getting out of the entry level, or you get to the entry level job that isn't working at McDonald's, anything higher than that. And I feel like if you can get a couple of years into something like that or a few jobs like that, then like companies will start taking notice.
Sounds good. I mean, that is absolutely true, Fritz. Like, if you developing skills on the job work just as well, and yeah,
and you get paid doing it. So
yeah, I will also recommend to everybody, you know, be able to pivot in your career path. Have a hobby that you could hypothetically get paid for is a really good idea, and just have like multiple things you can do that are good in case one career path doesn't work out for you. That's very important in the modern world. But thank you very much. Gray Smog for $5. What do you guys think of The Thing? Fritz, do you want to take this one?
You know what? I'm going to force myself to watch it this week.
You haven't seen it?
I've seen, I know I'll love it. I know it's great. I know it's got, you know, what's his name? Kurt Russell in it. So that should be enough to watch it. But yeah, no, I have it on Blu-ray. I'm going to watch it this week.
Well, that's, it's, I mean, this is the thing. This is literally the thing. I do like, so it's based on a earlier movie called The Thing from Outer Space, which is about like, it's more like a plant man that's buried under the ice, and they excavate it and it comes to life, which is an all right campy 50s movie, and which is in turn loosely based on The Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. The Thing has some of the best sort of monster movie effects of any movie that's ever been made, and The Thing itself is creepy as all get out. The problem is that the characters themselves are really forgettable, and you'll remember you'll remember the Kurt Russell character, and then everyone else you'll remember them by sort of their hair color or their skin color.
Which is kind of the point, though, right? Is it could be it, because The Thing could be any of them.
I guess you could say that, but I mean, I think that if you're going to make lack of character development an element of your horror film, then you know you better have really good creature effects, which it does. So it ends up being a pretty good movie, despite having an extreme lack of character development that probably would have sunk most other movies that didn't have such an impressive creature feature.
It did remind me of, just since I know that's John Carpenter, there's a scene in the original Halloween when it's a funny little sad tangent that there's a shot when Laurie is just looking back and she thinks she sees Michael, and you look back and it cuts to you see a little smoke coming out in front of the camera, and that's apparently because John Carpenter was chain smoking that day, and the smoke got in front of the lens.
Well, there you go. There's touches.
Over the Garden Wall and oh, bless you. Over the Garden Wall and The Thing. I'm gonna see this week.
Yeah, we always watch Over the Garden Wall on Halloween.
And again, it just seems like that's a show that it's just there are so few Western animated series that are that quality. It's I think of Avatar: The Last Airbender and that, and very little else. I think there was people the Batman, the animated series, and then a few other things, but unfortunately so much. Yeah, that. But it's so much of modern cartoons are just babysit things for millennial women, because they all have these proud brown lesbian characters, and that's all they are.
Yeah, Adventure Time was the original Cal Arts, and I'll stand behind that one. And it did spawn Rebecca Sugar and all of the horrible things she's created since then. This, her sort of existentialist philosophy mixed with Pendleton words, that overlap actually kind of worked for Adventure Time. And I'll stand by Adventure Time as a good show. But unfortunately, Adventure Time had people that tried to copy it, and everything that's been a copy of that has been absolute trash, including Steven Universe, which I guess it's still going, but it's just... I watched a few episodes of that and I just couldn't take it. It's just...
Yeah, I hated it. I watched a few. I couldn't stand it. The main characters
are so irritating. They're all so irritating. They're like a bunch of incredibly grating West Coast Bay Area types. It's in Berkeley, the most irritating people you meet in among Berkeley townies, and that's the cast of Steven Universe.
Mm-hmm. And then I remember Adventure Time was kind of the evolution of the 2000s. Was the era when it feels like a lot of studios just said fuck it, make crazy weird shit. You got stuff like Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Ed and Eddie had a weird kind of vibe to it too, but that was kind of what I grew up in, and it's just but yeah, Over the Garden Wall, it's just it's just amazing that something like that was made when it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very late for how good it was. That's for sure.
And something you just kind of realize is it's not just it's an evolution of is since the show itself is supposed to take place in I think late 70s or the 80s, it's almost making fun of that type of nostalgia, because it's that world is so kind of dull and boring compared to them exploring deep American culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's good. I've sung that things praises enough. Hunger for $10. The collapse of any empire, be it the Ottoman, Austrian, Russian, or even the Soviet Union, always leads to ethnic conflict because of the borders and the demographics. And he says the mismatch between the borders and the demographics. This is the big reason why I am a reactionary. I think that's sort of all of our reasons for being reactionaries, is we see this conflict that necessarily emerges out of political chaos and demographic, I don't want to say diversity, demographic change, radical demographic change. And we need some political order to confront this that's going to stave off an absolute disaster. And that's reactionary ideas are the only ones that seem to be taking this problem seriously.
And I think, more people are going to have to start realizing that the liberalism is just not going to work. It's just not working.
Yeah, I mean, who needs to
the liberal
learn
project,
this lesson, right?
Well, a lot of conservatives do, but it's a lesson people are going to learn one way or the other.
Fair enough. Dreadnought for $5. What do you guys think of Aliens movies? Those two are my favorite horror movies. Well, I'd say Alien is a horror. Alien is a horror movie. Aliens is kind of like an action movie.
Yeah, I love the original Alien. I love the look of everything. Just acting is great. It's funny though. Looking back, it's like it's one of those. It's kind of like how originally they wanted Jaws to be a lot more prominent, but they couldn't get the shark mechanics to work. So it actually makes it scary because you don't see it that much. The actual alien in Alien is a kind of goofy rubber monster guy in a rubber suit, but they hide it so well that it works. Which it's funny that like there was the game Alien Isolation that came out of like actually almost 10 years ago. And the problem is that like if you're feeling nostalgic about seeing the alien and not scared, it's not really working. But yeah, do you have anything about the Alien movie? Hello? Hello? Dave, I cannot hear you. Okay, I guess Dave is gone for a moment. Oh, are you back? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Hopefully this will kill the other Dave distributed.
Yeah, there's two of you. You're multiplying, but yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I can remove this guy. Okay, that's better. Anyway, yeah, I don't know what you said exactly about Alien, but
it's great.
Yeah, some people like Alien 3. I think that's when the series starts going downhill, but there's some things to admire of that.
Mm-hmm.
But let me keep on going here. Anything else to say about Aliens before we keep on
Not
going?
really. I've said my piece about it.
Okay. Thank you, Dreadnought. And then Leo John Ginnid for $3 more says, "Hey Dave, thanks for joining our animation server, even just for the sake of joining. When I asked, it was definitely a morale boost. See you when I can make animation reactionary edutainment." Well, yeah, absolutely. It sounds great. You know, I can't imagine that the AI stuff isn't going to make production faster, even though I would highly encourage drawing the concept art by hand. But there's an opportunity for end running around the main studios when producing entertainment with this stuff.
I mean, some stuff I've seen has been actually amazing. There's like a series called Lackadaisy, which is like they've only had one episode, but it's like this. They're like anthropomorphic cats, like in the 1920s bootlegging, and it's like probably some of the best animation I've seen in years. It's of course run by furries, but it itself is not. It's not the content itself is not too offensive.
Well, that's always what I worry about this stuff. Is I always worry that it's subversive, right? That this is what the problem with all anime is, and this is what makes me suspicious of this stuff. It's like it always is. Like there's that article about that woman whose girl was transitioning into a guy because she went to SAC anime, and like SAC anime was exactly like I know that scene, and it's true. It's like it's all traditional kind of concept art on the outside and the form, but the essence is all 100% like this gay pause stuff. It's like theater kid stuff, like theater kid. Like it's traditional on the outside, it's gothic on the outside, it's all the things you like on the outside, and the inside is completely fake all the way down to the core. And that's why I always suspect. That's why I can't like anything anymore, because I'm always suspecting that it's going to be subversive on the inside. But anyway, those are the last of the super chats. Fritz, did you have anything you wanted to end on?
No, I mean I still like anime, but yeah, we can have our disagreements. I can appreciate.
No, I like anime. I mean, I like some of the stuff's good. Like I like the Miyazaki stuff. I like a few things that aren't Miyazaki every now and again. Although
but you are right about it, and I actually like you made a point of saying like we need anime control instead of gun control. Of like people should have their anime and a right to anime, but there needs to be regulation on some of it.
what is that famous Miyazaki quote? He said, "Anime
It's all
needs."
trash.
Yeah, no, I think he said anime needs to be safe, legal, and rare. Right.
Mhm. Oh yes, yes. Which is,
I'm stealing that joke from somebody, I don't remember who, but safe. I appreciate anime if it's safe, legal, and rare. That's my opinion on anime.
yeah, I mean, there's so much trash that comes out. There's like only one or two things I like that came out recently uh, that are kind of fun. Like there's one called Chainsaw Man, which is a complete. It's not a superhero thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to describe. In a lot of ways, it just kind of reflects a lot of millennial kind of issues where the main character is like this stunted teenage like neat because he was like he was like never been to school, and like his only dream is like, I just want to go out with a girl, and then he does, and he's like, well, now I feel empty inside, and it's like he's just like given this nice like basic life and he thinks it's paradise, and it's kind of sad, but the series has a lot of heart to it, and it's also really weird. But yeah, Chainsaw Man I like. Berserk is
Yeah, everyone
not
tells me that Berserk is good.
problem is that it's so graphic, it's kind of hard to recommend to anybody, but it being graphic is kind of what makes it good. Or is like part of its identity.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm gonna go do the Last Things film festival, and my movie I'm going to discuss at length is Titus Andronicus, which is a very graphic movie. Mm-hmm. Or Titus, 1999's Titus.
Yeah, I love that movie, by the way. With like even there's like the opening scene where the kid and like it's he's like playing with all the toys. Like
it's a brilliant opening scene. I could write an entire essay just on the opening scene of Titus. Like the opening 5 scenes are just some of those brilliant cinema that ever came out of the 90s, in my opinion. And it's just an amazing film. One scene to the other, from the beginning to the end. I mean, it doesn't hurt the fact that it's literally written by one of the greatest writers of all time, right? So you can hardly ask for a better screenplay.
Yeah, and it's all, and also the subject is like, all right, the play is also pretty based politically wise.
Well, yeah, it's reactionary, right?
Oh yeah, it's like you have like the new emperor is like a literal like
cuck. He's a literal cuck. He looks like a cuck.
And he's like so effeminate, and like his wife is literally like having sex with an African man, and it's like, and then of course who saves the day is just like the reactionary military leaders come in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very Spenglerian Shakespeare play. I'll say that for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly better than As You Like It, which I read that, and I can't even remember anything that happened in it.
It's hard to keep the comedies separated in your mind oftentimes, but the 90s had a number of very, very good Shakespeare adaptations done by Kenneth Branagh that were fun and modern enough and not insulting to your intelligence. And we stopped doing that. I wonder if there's ever going to be a Shakespeare done straight again in the theaters. In the movies, it'd be fun. It would be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I kind of have to go soon too, but like on the last
literally rounding this up, right?
Yeah, and on a last recommendation is like if have you ever read the original Frankenstein?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I read that, and that movie or the book is so much better than like the 31 movie, just because the actual monster in it is so much more horrifying, because the fact that he's not this like walking zombie, he's actually very intelligent, which makes it a lot creepier. That he's a creator. To me, it's almost like it shows like what humans would be like without a soul or without God. Like all the enjoyments and like pleasure and pain of being a human is kind of taken away from him, or he knows what that is, but he can never actually have it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept to think of it outside of the 31 movie. I will say that the 31 movie, with all of these Universal monster movies, you have to remember that these were experimental films,
and they were made in like in that like short period of time before the censorship.
Yeah, and they were struggling with the fact that these were some of the first talkies. These are one of the first proper horror movies. There are all these limitations placed on them, and for what they are, I mean, it's unfortunate that they had to get reprocessed through all of our Halloween and horror tropes again and again and again and again, right? To the point where now they're mostly known for being kind of like teen girl kind, or these like teeny bopper spin-offs, right, of these like the fun Frankenstein or fun Dracula and all this stuff. Like, you know,
I mean, that might be also. I do like the movie still, but Young Frankenstein probably contributed to that, though.
Oh, everything did. It was, you know, it was these movies were cliche when Ed Wood was making movies in the late 50s. Like these have been played out so much. I mean, like I'll say this, like one of my favorite movies of all time. Speaking of Halloween movies, Arsenic and Old Lace. Right? Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
It's excellent. It's with Gary. So it's a stage play, and it's about these little old ladies and their son who comes to visit them for well, he's about to get married, and they have a horrible secret they're keeping in the basement that you'll discover throughout the course of the play. This is something the movie missed out on this joke, right? But one of the characters, he's a wanted man, and he has reconstructive surgery. And during one of the reconstructive surgeries to keep him away from, like, so the police don't recognize him, the surgeon, played by Peter Lorre, famous character actor.
Yes, Peter Lorre.
Yeah. Watched Frankenstein, and so he looks like Frankenstein when he redid his face, right? In the original stage play, he was actually played by Boris Karloff, who's the actor who played Frankenstein. And there's this moment in the stage play where he turns to the character. He's like, "Why did you kill that guy?" And he said, "I look like Boris Karloff." And it's literally Boris Karloff, right? So, you know, by that time, that play was made in the 40s, and when it was made into a movie in the 50s, Frankenstein was already a joke. It was so cliche that the original actor who played Frankenstein was typecast as Frankenstein. So like we just have to kind of like we have to treat these movies for the artifacts that they are, and we're never going to escape their own cliched nature, but we have to appreciate them for what they were. I have 2 more super chats here. Sam153 says, happy Saturday night. Nice streaming, cheers. And apparently our friend the Franklin's streaming also, so we're competing with him.
Oh no.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to end on, Fritz, before we
Nope,
call this
happy Lepanto Day, I guess.
Okay, yes. Happy
Go to
Lepanto
church
Day.
tomorrow, you heathens. I need to go. So.
All right. Everyone, don't forget to go to church, and I'll say happy Saturday night on our live stream, not happy Saturday night live. But very nice having you on the stream again, Fritz.
Anytime.
Have a wonderful October. See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.